no safe, like Simply Safe. You might be having a case of deja vu. You're thinking, didn't these guys already do a comparison between the Type R and the Elantra N? You'd be right. We even threw in the GR Corolla and a few other cars and had Carlos Lago from Car and Driver come down. And the result was resounding. The Civic Type R won our test in almost every single category, from interior, exterior, mechanicals, lap times, drivability, and usability. So what's the complaint? Well, a lot of the Hyundai guys and girls were complaining that we didn't use the dual clutch. It would have made a big difference on track. Also, we didn't have it properly octane learned to get the peak performance out of it. So here we are, it's the second chance. But before you go off even further, we did give this car our favorite, fun, enjoyable performance vehicle of 2023. For its price point being $10,000 less than the Type R, you can make a lot of excuses for why this is a better value. And we're gonna go into some of that in the shop in the drivability. But first, we're going to talk about the exterior proportions. And we don't talk about this a lot, and Hyundai has updated the front and the rear of this car to make it a bit more cohesive. But when you park it next to a car like the Civic Type R or like the Integra Type S, it's very clear that they didn't quite know what to do with the sedan proportions. They overstyled a lot of this with the way the old front and rear looked. They put all this triangle stuff from their last generation, like styling exercises. And because it's trying to do something more than what it is, instead of looking like a really good sports sedan, it looks awkward. And because it doesn't have the hatch or the lift back like the Civic, it's less usable. Combine that with the fact that you have a support bar in the back that greatly improves the chassis rigidity. You don't want to remove it. So you're sacrificing a lot for the performance, and it doesn't have kind of the looks to go along with it. I appreciate what it's trying to do. In the interior space, the usability is almost equal in a lot of cases. All the physical controls, you could argue which is better or worse, but they're about the same. A lot of the materials are similar. It's just more what you prefer. The big tangible things that the Civic Type R does better, it has a better audio system. We tested that. The seats are superior. You have a lower seating position, more support. The center console is far better laid out. You don't have this like chunky grab handle here that just kind of creaks and all the piano black that this car throws at it. But this car does have better infotainment. If that's what you care about, some of the graphical interface and the way that you get through menus to change settings are far better designed than the old infotainment in the Civic. So again, there's pros and cons here, but a lot of this for the Elantra N being 10 grand less, it does its job, and it's still a great interior space, and it feels more old school. But we're going to go in the shop. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of the mechanical parts of each car before I run Jack down on track in the Civic Type R while he drives this car. In the shop, hopefully for the last time, with two front-wheel drive kings, the FL5 Civic Type R and the 2024 Elantra N. This time, finally, with a dual clutch. We've already tested it with a manual, and we tested the 23 like 5 different times. So we're finally putting this comparison to bed.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying, oh, if you just tested the dual clutch, it would be game-changing. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to solve this, and we're trying to answer the question.
So you have to stop coming to my house and telling me...
Wait, sorry, hold on.
Of course.
Hello?
What?
Every day it's a mob of crazy fans. This one is starstruck and has been trying to break up my third marriage because she loved the Chevrolet Trax video and our detailed analysis of the 3-cylinder power unit. In the middle of a groundbreaking workday, I found out someone had broken into my mansion again. The problem with being a celebrity is everyone wants to be you. They want what you have. Doctors, surgeons, lawmakers, they all wished they could make a difference like I do. Making car videos on social media, even with all of the success, I can't prevent being burgled. This week, my family bidet was once again tainted by another vagrant, so it was time to take the power back. I invested in a simply safe home security system, cutting-edge cameras to capture this injustice. These criminals may get smart and hide themselves, but my system comes with a water sensor to capture leaks or overflown toilets. When I am brokering double-digit business deals, I feel more relaxed with Simply Safe's exclusive 24/7 live guard protection and the smart alarm indoor camera. With two-way interaction, live agents can stop these villains before they activate the powerful 5-way heated seat.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Best part yet, I get my hands dirty and install the system myself, proving to my detractors that handsome men like me can also use double-sided tape. Save 50% on your system, plus a free indoor security camera, and your first month is free when you sign up for Core Monitoring. Visit simplysafe.com/savagegeese to customize yours. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
All right, sorry about that, Jack. At least that's resolved. I have the security system in place to make sure that there is not someone sneaking in using my bidet now. So
That's a common problem for many businessmen, Mark.
yes, it is.
Unauthorized bidet usage. All right, let's talk about the FL5, and we've done about 10 million videos on this car where you can see the original chief engineer want to run away from us, to your ownership videos, to everything else in between. But let's start with horsepower and the engine. It's a 2-liter K20 C15 D3. It's a 2-liter turbocharged Honda motor. It makes about 315 horsepower. To the wheels, you're looking at around 300 to the wheels.
Yeah, the numbers are not what we're looking at here. It's got VTEC.
Oh, perfect. It puts its power down with only one gearbox, a 6-speed manual transmission with a helical front differential. It is mechanical diff in the front. It weighs less than the dual clutch Elantra N that we're testing by about 100 pounds. This is where the Elantra N is just under 3,300. There is a big weight difference between these cars. When it comes to suspension, both of these are front-wheel drive only. However, there are some key differences in that department.
Yeah, you get ZF dampers on the Type R that are active. You have multiple different modes from comfort to bouncy house mode. And the ADS module has been proven you can swap out the Integra Type S to get the exact same suspension calibrations for the ZF shocks from the Type S to soften it up. That's a modification you're gonna have to do on your own. But the big story here, the big difference is the front suspension on this car is far more sophisticated. That's the best way to put it. In my long-term video, I go through the slides, the Japanese slides talking about how and why and all this. But the long story short is it's essentially like a multi-link strut in the front. They're able to counteract a lot of the forces that you typically see with front-wheel drive to reduce torque steer. That pulling, it's able to keep the geometry more settled so the car feels more natural in the front end. Whereas the Elantra, which we're going to show, is just the basic strut front end with some commonalities in terms of changing spring rates and dampers and making a more rigid knuckle. But this is the real deal. This is Honda's like Halo car, for love it or hate it. So they put a lot of time in this. The rest of the car is built on the base Civic hatch, so all the sound deadening's out of it. So it's essentially the lightest weight variant that they could do from the start. There's brake cooling ducts. There's a whole lot of thought to trying to make this better to drive, including brake torque vectoring, which is kind of the magic of how this car rotates so easily under braking and turns in. So that's my part of it, Jack.
Yeah, there's greater use of aluminum in this, and most notably, it comes with a much wider tire than you get on the Elantra N. So as a recap, this has more mechanical grip than the Elantra N. It's running a 265 versus a 245. For this test, they're both on the identical factory tire. This car makes more power than the Elantra N that we're testing, and it weighs less. Plus, it has bigger brakes. This has a 4-pot Brembo in the front. And while you found out on the track that this car is very hard on its brake fluid and brake pads, there are a lot of aftermarket options like the ones from Counter Space Garage, and honestly, if you're going to track this car, you need to do brake pads and brake fluid. Now let's talk about the Elantra N. This car also has a 2-liter. It is Hyundai's N engine. It makes 270-ish horsepower, and then when you are in N-Grin shift mode, in the dual clutch, it boosts it up to about 286. You get 2 different gearboxes, you get a 6-speed manual, and the dual clutch that is in this Elantra N that we're testing, you have to octane learn both gearboxes. So essentially, for whatever reason, instead of on the fly learning the octane that you put in, whether it be 87, 91, or 93, you have to put the car into an octane learn mode, which is very, very stupid.
Yourself? So we octane learn the dual clutch, so it has the best chance of trying to win this massive track battle, Jack.
Let me tell you about that. When it comes to the way it puts its power down, it has an eLSD in the front. That's one of the best things about this car, is it almost feels like a 2.5-way or 1.5-way front diff. Really pulls you through corners. While there is some torque steer still, The front end of this car feels great. We've talked about it in multiple different videos. It changes for 24 and 23, but they've gone through the Elantra, the base car, and made it as dynamic as possible. It has a multi-link rear end. They've reinforced suspension points. They have a brace in the back. They have taken all of their learnings from all the various other end products that preceded this car, like the Kona N, the i30, the i20, the Veloster N, and they put all their learnings into this vehicle. And honestly, as we've talked about in the past, it is our favorite Hyundai probably car that they've made. It was our favorite cheap car in the past.
But essentially, they're getting to the same place of being this really, really engaging, fun to drive front-wheel drive car, and the Elantra definitely does almost all of it for far less money. But I would say, maybe we should take this out on track and have a showdown.
All right, Mark. I will show you what I can do in a Korean-powered, front-wheel drive, hot compact car, sir.
Oh, Jack's faster in a straight line in his Elantra N. I wonder why, because he doesn't have to shift himself. Look, he can't keep pace with the race-bred Civic Type R, the king of front-wheel drive cars.
Let's talk about acceleration first. This car has the dual clutch. It puts its power down through an ELSD in the front. It is quicker off the line, at least in the real world, versus the FL5. It puts its power down all nice and early, lots of low down torque. Horsepower pretty much peaks under 6,000 RPM, then you ride it out to the red line.
Handling wise, you know, we all know that the Type R is a little bumpy. There's a lot of rebound in this car, so it makes it a lot more edgy and ridiculous to drive fast. But, you know, a lot of people are switching out the Type S ADS module to make this a softer riding car. But honestly, I think, you know, if I had to pick two cars, you know, despite its suspension stiffness, I really enjoy driving this car because of its edginess, the way that the front end turns. For a street car that does track duty, it's really impressive how the front end works. A lot of that has to do with the suspension. You know, like we talk about this in the shop, it's got a really special front end suspension for this type of platform, and I could easily pull away from Jack in the corners, stock versus stock here.
Braking. I don't think these brakes, at least in this particular press car, are as good as you find on the FL5, but they do a pretty reasonable job. I'm going to say the overall handling balance of this car, it feels very nimble, it rotates well. It's just maybe a little less competent than the FL5, and I think that's the best way I'm going to describe this vehicle is, while it is very fun to drive, I think if your sole mission is to have a ye old time on the racetrack, the FL5 has more precise inputs. It's just, you know, 5 to 10% less dynamically proficient as that vehicle. The dual clutch, while it may technically be faster than the manual gearbox in this car, I would say save your $1,000, enjoy a manual gearbox, and, you know, and just enjoy what this car has to offer, which is arguably the best bargain in performance sports cars you can buy today.
But the big thing for me is the overall package of this car. It's the real deal. Not that the Elantra is no slouch. You're paying far less money and you're getting a lot of the same type of fun out of this car, but it's the little details driving this car that make it so special. And you know, you can see out here, as much as Jack's trying to run away from me, he just can't. Everything is working so well together that you know, I think it's pretty obvious who I think's the winner besides me. Look at this guy. He's got nothing. Bye.
Before we get into the final thoughts, because this is an internet video, we have to talk about lap times and how they compare. Now, let's talk about the Elantra N. We have tested this car on track 3 or 4 times at this point. We've timed it 3 times. The fastest this car has ever gone around Autobahn South is in our original test when we ran them in a group test. That car ran a 1:38 and change, a couple tenths off an FL5. It also ran in the best conditions of the entire group. It was the first car we ran, the coldest temps out. This car has been slower the last 2 times we ran it. Our first 24 test ran in the low 139s. This time when we ran the dual clutch, it ran a 140. A lot of that's due to how hot it was outside. The ambient conditions haven't been consistent, and in short, the Elantra N, regardless if it's a manual or a dual clutch, is slower by anywhere from up to a second to half a second versus an FL5 Type R. Why is that? Well, logically, it weighs more, it makes less power, it has smaller brakes, and it has less mechanical grip in the tires. You're comparing a 245 factory to a 265. The Type R pulls on it in the straights when they're both in the same gear, or when you're rolling up to one another leaving an apex, and it can carry more speed through corners. That's it. That's where we're at with it. Yes, if you had the stars align and you ran one car at a different time, maybe the Elantra N would be faster, but in our testing, it is slower. And to be honest, the biggest difference you're going to see in lap time with this car around Autobahn at least is conditions. The car does not handle a lot of heat very well, at least in the tire department. Now let's get into the final thoughts. First off, huge thanks to our title sponsor, Bridgestone. We've run these cars on Bridgestones in the past. If you're looking to do a lot of track days, the RE71 RS or the Potenza Race are our 2 favorite tires in this class. And also thanks to Autobahn Country Club, the track that gives us a home to do tests like this. We used one of their instructors, Jordan, a Road to Indy driver, to help set lap times this time around because Britt wasn't available. They have a great staff and they have a driver academy. So if you want to learn to become a better driver from drivers like Jordan or Britt, please hit them up. So what about the cars? Well, in short, if you have the $10,000 extra dollars, the Civic Type R is the better driving car, marginally. In every single aspect, it's a little bit better. It has better seats, it has better seating position, it has better inputs. It feels better to drive. The Elantra N is still our favorite affordable, do-everything sports car. Is it better than the Type R? No, but it is a hell of a lot less money. So it comes down to what you like. The FL5 has some of that Porsche feel in that for a front-wheel drive, $40-ish, $50-ish thousand car, it's the closest thing to like perfection you can get. It reminds me of something like a GT3. Everything's very, very good. The Elantra N has a little bit more whimsy. It has all the fake engine noise, the pops and cracks. It wants to rotate. There's a greater sense of fun behind it, but it's not as technically competent. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.